When I was growing up, I noticed something that never sat right with me. It wasn't spoken loudly. It was in the silence when girls were told to stay quiet. It wasn't written in rule books. It was in the unspoken expectations that boys dream big and girls just follow. I remember the whispers, "Sit like a girl," "Don't laugh too loudly," "That's not a job for women." And I remember thinking, why not? I didn't grow up with a silver spoon. I grew up with questions. I grew up watching the difference in how women were treated, judged, and limited. But somewhere deep inside me, I also grew up with fire. That fire said, you don't have to accept this. I knew I wasn't just someone's daughter. I wasn't born to blend into a tradition of silence. I was born to challenge it. And I knew if I stayed quiet, I'd only be repeating the pattern that held back generations of women before me. We talk about women's empowerment like it's a trend, but for many of us, it was a rebellion. A decision, a choice to be more, a promise to ourselves. I will not shrink so others can be comfortable. So I stood up, I failed, I fell, I got told you're too much. And I made it my superpower. Today, the world doesn't need perfect women. It needs loud ones, bold ones, unapologetic ones. The world needs you. You have power. You always did. The only thing left is to use it. She didn't need a textbook to understand what inequality looked like. She saw it in real time, in real life. It was in the way boys were allowed to roam free, dream big, speak loud, while girls were constantly told to lower their gaze, lower their voice, lower their expectations. It was in the dinner tables where men spoke and women served. It was in the opportunities that never came, and in the dreams that quietly died in the corners of unnoticed lives. As a child, she wondered why her worth felt conditional, why being a girl meant shrinking, why her voice always felt like an echo. No one ever said the words out loud, but the message was clear. Girls had invisible boundaries drawn around them, these unspoken rules whispered through every tradition, every glance, every silence. When a boy spoke up, he was confident. When a girl did the same, she was called rude. When he dreamed, it was ambition. When she dreamed, it was delusion. The expectations weren't written on walls, but they were carved into culture, into habits, into generational mindsets. She was taught to sit a certain way, speak a certain way, live a certain way, all without anyone ever having to say it directly. It doesn't start with a revolution. It starts with a question, one quiet, powerful question: why not me? That single moment of rebellion grows louder inside a girl who's tired of being told to stay small. When she looks around and sees doors closed, she doesn't just wait. She knocks, she pushes, she kicks them open. Rebellion isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a decision made in silence, a decision to apply for what she was told wasn't meant for her, to raise her hand when everyone expects her to stay in the background, to believe she is enough even when the world doesn't clap for her. There comes a moment when silence begins to suffocate more than noise. She realizes that staying quiet to please others only feeds the very system that tried to erase her. So she stops asking for validation. She stops shrinking herself to fit into someone else's version of acceptable. Her power doesn't arrive in a spotlight. It emerges in small, steady acts of defiance. Speaking up when it's uncomfortable, saying no when it's expected to be yes, walking into rooms she was never invited to. The more she uses her voice, the more she realizes it was never meant to be hidden or softened for anyone's comfort. They called her too loud, too bold, too emotional, too ambitious, but every too much was a reflection of their fear, not her flaws. She learned to turn their judgments into power, not pain. When they tried to shame her into silence, she let that shame ignite her courage. She wore their labels like armor, not shackles. What they called arrogance, she called confidence. What they saw as rebellion, she knew was her right. Every name they tried to use against her only sharpened her focus. Because once you stop letting the world define you, you start defining the world around you. The world doesn't need women who play small to make others feel big. It needs women who dare to take up space. It needs women who speak even when their voices shake, who lead without waiting for approval, who rewrite the rules instead of following outdated ones. She realized her power wasn't in becoming what others expected, it was in becoming what she was born to be, unstoppable, unfiltered, unapologetic. Every time a woman refuses to step aside, she clears the path for another. Every time she owns her story, she gives someone else permission to rise. This is how movements are born, not from noise, but from courage.